Wall Street. He didn't wear the standard blue suit. He didn't host investment seminars at the Four Seasons. Alan Stanford operated from the Caribbean, from an island paradise wrapped in luxury and secrecy. While the world, obsessed over Bernie Madoff, Stanford was quietly building his own empire. Not with stocks, not with innovation, but with lies. Alan Stanford founded the Stanford Financial Group, promising clients a safe haven for their savings. His weapon? Certificates of deposit, CDs, that allegedly paid higher returns than any legitimate bank could offer. Investors were told their money was secure, diversified, and carefully invested across the globe. What they didn't know was that almost nothing existed. Want more shocking stories of financial fraud? Hit like and subscribe now, because the biggest scams hide in plain sight. If you want more stories like this, about the hidden monsters behind global money, subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. Because what's buried deserves to be unearthed. Stanford wasn't just selling financial products. He was selling an illusion of power. He owned a private jet, multiple yachts, an airline, a cricket team, and even a newspaper. He rubbed shoulders with presidents, donated to campaigns, and hosted lavish parties. From Texas to Antigua, he was seen as a billionaire philanthropist, a symbol of modern success. His Stanford International Bank operated out of Antigua, a tiny island nation he practically controlled through donations, influence, and favors. It was from there that he funneled billions of dollars from investors around the world. Many were retirees, families, and professionals who had moved their life savings into Stanford's offshore CDs, drawn in by the promise of safety and consistent high yields. At its peak, Stanford Financial Group claimed over $50 billion in assets under management. He sponsored international cricket tournaments, awarded million-dollar prizes, and built stadiums. He bought influence like others bought real estate. Even U.S. politicians accepted campaign contributions from his companies. The illusion was global. But behind the polished brochures and smiling faces, there were no real investments. The returns Stanford paid out were just money from new investors, classic Ponzi. And yet, he operated this scheme in plain sight for over 15 years. Auditors were compromised, regulators ignored warnings, and banks kept doing business with him. Some insiders tried to raise concerns. There were whistleblowers, internal documents suggesting that the bank's portfolio was fabricated, that no due diligence was being done. But those voices were silenced, ignored, or pushed out. For many, it was easier to keep quiet than to question the golden goose. By 2008, the cracks began to show. Whistleblowers inside the firm started raising red flags. Financial journalists began asking uncomfortable questions. Investors were confused when payouts slowed. And finally, the SEC, under increasing pressure after missing Madoff, turned its eyes to Stanford. In February 2009, the Stanford empire collapsed. The SEC charged him with fraud, calling it a massive Ponzi scheme involving over $7 billion in fake investments. His accounts were frozen, his offices raided. His image, once synonymous with Caribbean banking, was now plastered across. Headlines as one of the biggest fraudsters in U.S. history, Stanford tried to run. He denied the charges, he blamed the media. But he couldn't stop the tide. Investigators found that most of the bank's portfolio didn't exist. Internal memos showed that the investment division wasn't investing at all. The profits were fictional. The numbers were made up. And yet, even after the collapse, confusion reigned. Thousands of investors couldn't believe it. How could someone with so many public ties, so much wealth, so much presence, be a conman? But the evidence was overwhelming. The CDs were a lie. The bank was insolvent. And the wealth? It was built on air. Stanford was arrested and eventually convicted on 13 counts, including wire fraud, mail fraud, and obstruction of justice. In 2012, he was sentenced to 110 years in federal prison. During his trial, prosecutors revealed the full extent of the scheme, how he used investor money to fund a lavish lifestyle and keep the illusion alive. He denied everything, claimed he was a victim, blamed others, said the government had ruined his business. But the paper trail told a different story. There were no legitimate profits, no diversified investments, just one man moving billions between shell accounts, and hoping no one would ask the wrong question. Unlike Madoff, who operated from within the system, Stanford weaponized the offshore model. He exploited weak financial regulation in small nations. He used diplomacy, sponsorships, and charm to silence critics. He even paid for Antiguan officials' trips and gifts. The island's economy became intertwined with his financial empire, a dependency that helped keep the illusion alive far longer than it should have. If you're starting to question how many other schemes are hiding in plain sight, share this video, because what happened with Stanford can happen again. Stanford's downfall exposed more than just a fraud. It revealed the blind spots in the global financial system. International banks accepted his wire transfers, wealth advisors, recommended his CDs, law firms, accounting firms, even regulators, all missed it or ignored it. Because he looked like success, his clients were left with nothing. Many lost their homes, their retirements, their futures. The court-appointed receivers have spent years trying to recover assets, chasing offshore accounts, liquidating property. But the damage was done. The victims, at over 30,000 of them, have had to live with the consequences of believing in a lie that was too big, too polished, too well-dressed to question. Some victims were from Venezuela, others from Mexico, Europe, even the US. The scam wasn't national, it was global. People trusted the brand, the certificates, the man, and in return they got empty accounts and years of legal battles. Some died before seeing any compensation. Think this couldn't happen today? Think again. Share this video to expose how greed and deception still lurk in the shadows of safe investments. Stanford once said he wanted to be bigger than Goldman Sachs. In the end, he became something else entirely, a cautionary tale, a billionaire with nothing real, a king whose castle was built from paper and deceit. This isn't just the story of a man who lied, it's the story of a system that enabled him, of banks that looked the other way, of auditors who said nothing, of governments who accepted checks but not scrutiny, and of thousands of ordinary people who just wanted a safe place to grow their money and were left in ruins. Because in finance, the most dangerous lie is the one that's dressed in success.